Mr. Brown, if you'll raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence I give upon this hearing by the Senate of Texas of impeachment charges against Warren Kenneth Paxton Jr. shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do.
Thank you. Please have a seat. And as they will instruct you, talk as closely to the mic as you can get. Thank you.
May I proceed, Mr. President?
Yes, you
Thank
may.
you. Sir, please introduce yourself to the honorable members of the Senate.
Joseph David Brown. I go by Joe.
Mr. Brown, how are you currently employed?
I have a private law practice in Sherman.
Could you please summarize for us, albeit briefly, your history as an attorney, your jobs, positions you've held?
I graduated from SMU Law School in 1995. I started with a civil law firm in Dallas, about 100 lawyers, Coles and Thompson. Did that work for about 5 years, returned to my hometown. Ran for district attorney in 2000 in Grayson County, was elected, spent 17 years as the district attorney in Grayson County, and then I was appointed as the Eastern District United States Attorney in 2018.
Was that a presidential appointment, Senate confirmation?
Nominated by the senators of Texas and presidentially appointed and Senate approved.
And under which administration were you appointed?
I was appointed by President Trump.
May I ask you, sir, at some point were you contacted by or on behalf of Attorney General Ken Paxton?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us the substance of that?
I received a call in late August of 2020 from a friend in McKinney who was a mutual friend of the Attorney General. He told me that Attorney General Paxton would like to visit with me if I'd be willing to about a potential criminal special investigation.
Did you meet with with Mr. Paxton?
Within the hour, I received a call from Attorney General Paxton. He introduced himself, we visited a little bit, and he asked me if I would come to Austin to visit about a matter that he had. He did not give much detail at that point. I knew it was criminal, I knew it was a special investigation, but I didn't know the role really, and he said he would explain that to me if I came to Austin.
Did you go to Austin?
I came to Austin on August 27th of 2020.
Did you meet personally with Mr. Paxton?
I did, in his office, about 45 minutes, and I met about 15 minutes with Jeff Mateer.
Can you give us a summary? I'll ask you, did he provide you some information concerning this potential complaint?
Are you asking me to
Well, I'm asking you, did he give you information about the complaint?
Attorney General Paxton told me about the complaint, yes.
And if you could, in just a few words, tell me what the substance of the report was.
Well, I didn't know what role I would be playing, whether I was going to be an independent prosecutor or under the authority of the Attorney General. So we talked about that, but he told me it involved a guy that had a warrant executed, and he believed the warrant could have been possibly executed unlawfully. So we continued to visit about that and flesh that out.
On the information that he provided you, just off the top of your head, did you have any? Well, let me retract that. Did you ask of him whether or not he had individuals within his own office who might be able to investigate this matter?
Yes, we talked about the fact. I remember him talking about that it involved potentially a phone line cut on some execution of a search warrant, and the warrant affidavit being changed. And I learned during that meeting that it was involving the FBI and the Securities Board and DPS, and the investigation would be involving that. So yes, we talked about that, and he said he could not get the people in his office to do anything about it. And I talked a little bit more about that, and he talked about the ranger, the retired ranger that worked for him, that wouldn't do anything about it.
Let me stop you there. Did you ask him a question after he told you that his own people weren't getting work done on it?
Yeah, I said, why don't you fire him?
What was his response?
It was complicated, and it just didn't work that way.
Fair enough. Did he advise you whether or not there were any other people in the race, whether you had competition?
He told me that there was another lawyer, young lawyer, that he was considering, but that he didn't have the credentials that I did. And so I assumed that if I wanted that he would choose me to do that.
You said that he had identified, if I'm correct, the FBI, the State Securities Board, and DPS. Is that accurate?
I remember those entities.
Did those raise any concerns for you? Just that first question.
Yeah, as we're talking.
And let me stop you there, just so I don't get an objection. The answer to the question is yes, correct?
Yes.
Did you relay those concerns to Mr. Paxton, and if so, what did you say?
Yes, I was aware of the fact that his indictment involved those three agencies, and I said I have some concern about the fact that it would be involving, that I would be under your authority and investigating the same agencies that were involved in your indictment. As we talked about it, I eventually, I'm having to process this during this meeting and learn all this, and the red flags are going off. So eventually I say, my preference is that I would write a report and be able to evaluate these conflicts before I would commit to any level of prosecution. And he said, we have people that can prosecute the case, that would be fine.
From your recollection, did he appear affected by these concerns that you raised? Did he indicate that it was a problem?
I'm sorry, conjecture and speculation as to whether or not he was affected.
Your Honor, if I may.
Sustained. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
From what you observed, sir, did you have any personal observations for how you believed he took that news?
Same objection.
Your Honor, if I may, we're talking about a lay witness opinion. This individual was in the room with him and spoke directly with Mr. Paxton and can testify as to what he observed.
I will sustain. I think you can phrase it better, so try one more time.
Sounds like a challenge, Your Honor, and I'm up for it, I hope. You told him these concerns that you raised, is that correct? What did you observe, if anything?
He told me, when I said I'm concerned about these, he said, I understand, I'm not worried about that, I just want to find the truth.
Fair enough. Did he tell you, did he indicate to you whether the individual involved was a donor?
I did not learn he was a donor until I went to talk to Jeff Mateer.
Did you learn from Mr. Paxton that he had any other relationship with this individual?
No, I had no idea when I left the Attorney General that there was anything other than a guy that he was, that was wronged, and I was unclear on why it was going to a special prosecutor other than what he had told me.
So let's fast forward. At some point, do you speak with Mr. Vassar about a potential contract?
Within a few days, he made contact, Ryan Vassar made contact with me by email and eventually gave me a contract. It didn't have any specific terms, it was just a general contract, and we exchanged emails about the scope and some details of the contract.
What was your purpose in defining the scope?
I repeated what I had told to the Attorney General, that because of my concerns about the conflicts, I would commit to investigating, to writing a report, and would not commit to prosecution until I'd been able to evaluate the conflicts further.
Was there an hourly rate that was addressed?
The hourly rate was, I can't remember, it didn't come from me, it was suggested with a contract or by Mr. Vassar.
Would a rate of $300 an hour be accurate?
That was the rate that was given to me.
Did you have any concerns about that rate?
I was in 2 months out from the U.S. Attorney's Office and just starting, and this was giving me an opportunity to stay involved in something relevant. I mean, the Attorney General was asking me to help with an investigation, so it intrigued me, so I wasn't worried about the money.
You were prepared to do any sort of investigation if you cleared conflicts for $300 an hour, is that accurate?
What was described to me, yes. I mean, I knew I could, if I needed to, get out of it, I could.
Were you prepared to secure any insurance that was necessary as provided by the contract?
Well, the insurance thing didn't come up until when I get the contract, it says you have to have malpractice insurance, and I was 2 months out of the U.S. Attorney's office, so did not have it. But, you know, that was not what kept me from doing it.
Did you, as a matter of fact, indicate to anybody that you were willing to get insurance within 30 days?
I would have gotten insurance if that was necessary. I thought it was something they could waive.
And did you explain that to Mr. Vassar?
Yes.
Did you feel, in your opinion, that that in any way stood in the way of you getting the job if you were to be chosen?
Yep.
I'm
That
sorry.
would never.
Excuse me, Mr. Brown. Objection, conjecture, and speculation. He doesn't know if it's in getting his way or not.
You also can speak up, Mr. Cogdale, when you speak. Sustain, you can rephrase that.
Did you get a response when you indicated that you could get insurance within 30 days?
We emailed, and he said it was something that he thought they could take care of, or words to that effect.
Very good. After you have raised concerns to the General, Paxton, after you've indicated that you wanted to limit the scope of your work so that you could make sure that those conflicts and concerns were taken care of, after you've indicated that you would work for $300 an hour and get insurance, were you chosen?
No, I followed up a couple times with emails, and it just, nothing happened after that.
Are you familiar with federal filings, or the process of performing federal filings as it relates to search warrants?
Yes.
You ran an entire office of Assistant United States Attorneys, correct?
Yes, I mean, I wasn't on the front line of the search warrants, but I certainly am familiar.
Fair enough. Are you familiar, sir, that when an application for a search warrant is filed, there is an application with accompanying affidavit,
Correct?
and then there is a search warrant order? Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay, and what we would call the application and the warrant. Is that fair?
Right.
Ms. Manello, if you would please pull up AG 1047. I apologize, Your Honor, we didn't have a digital copy, so we're putting it on the Elmo. If you could look at line number 1, please. Would you agree with me that on August 16, 2019, there is a motion to seal the search warrant application and the search warrant?
That's what's reflected.
And the search warrant application, again, contains the application and the affidavit. Is that accurate?
And the proposed warrant.
If we could go to line number 6 on the second page, please. At the top, would you agree with me here that it indicates that there is a motion for leave to disclose the search warrant, the sealed search warrant, correct?
That's the entry.
Would you agree with me that there is nothing on that entry that indicates that there is a motion for leave to disclose the sealed search warrant application, which would include the affidavit?
There's nothing that mentions the application.
Very good. Sir, are you familiar with OPR as it relates to federal government?
Yes.
Could you tell us what those initials stand for, please?
The Office of Professional Responsibility.
Do all Assistant United States Attorneys who enter on duty, at least during your time, are they made aware of the Office of Professional Responsibility and their jurisdiction to investigate complaints regarding United States attorneys?
Objection, conjecture, and speculation.
I'm asking from his direct knowledge, Your Honor.
Oh, you asked for all.
Overruled.
Please answer the question.
Assistant United States Attorneys are familiar with what the OPR is and what their jurisdiction is, yes.
If there was a complaint regarding an AUSA and the conduct in any one of their investigations, would the Office of Professional Responsibility be charged with investigating them?
Objection, conjecture, and speculation.
Overruled.
Please, sir.
That's one agency that could.
As a former United States attorney, presidentially appointed, are you aware if there is an OPR investigation ongoing, whether the United States Attorney's Office, where that employee who is complained of works, has any jurisdiction over the matter, or if it is entirely within Office of Professional Responsibility?
I'm sorry, objection vague. I don't understand the question.
Your Honor, if I may, I think it's more important if the witness understands it.
Overruled. You may answer.
I'm not sure I do, so. I'll try
That answers Mr. Cogdale's question. Would it be fair to say, or let me ask you this, in your experience as a presidentially appointed United States attorney, If somebody within your office, an AUSA within your office, was being investigated by the Office of Professional Responsibility, would your office, the office in which they worked, have any sort of responsibility for the investigation, or would it be entirely OPR?
No, my understanding is it goes to OPR out of Washington, D.C., and they keep it separate.
So the office where the AUSA works has no responsibility for that, correct?
That was my experience.
Are you familiar with OIG?
Yes, the Office of Inspector General.
Similarly, based on your experience working as a presidentially appointed United States attorney, are AUSAs within your office made aware of and trained on the Office of Inspector General and their jurisdiction?
They're certainly aware of it, what the level of training on it is. It doesn't take very long before they know that there's oversight organizations within the different areas of the Department of Justice.
If there is a complaint for an agent within the Department of Justice, not an AUSA anymore, but an agent, would the Office of Inspector General have oversight and jurisdiction?
It's my understanding they do. That's who investigates the investigators.
Same question. Investigates the investigators, and it is taken out of the hands of the regional or local United States Attorney's Office. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Thank you, sir. Pass the witness.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Mr. Cogdell?
Hi, Mr. Brown.
Good afternoon.
I think we met?
We have
Okay, in Sherman.
a courtroom in Sherman. Yes, sir.
Lovely courtroom, lovely judge. Nice to see you again. When you were meeting with Mr. Mateer, Mr. Brown, did he tell you that this is a bogus investigation and it shouldn't be investigated?
No, sir.
Did he, that is Mr. Mateer, give any indication to you that the investigation or that the job that you were applying for was unnecessary?
No, I sensed a little, I sensed something, but he never said anything directly other than he was glad that I was being considered because I would tell the Attorney General the truth.
Okay. And same with Mr. Vassar, when you were communicating with Mr. Vassar about the details of the contracts, did he suggest in any shape, form, or fashion that the job that you were applying for was unneeded, unnecessary, a sham, anything of the sort?
No.
And I hear you, Mr. Brown, on the troubling fact, potentially troubling fact, that these are the same agencies or some of the same agencies that had charged Mr. Paxton with the state securities fraud case, which, by the way, do you know of your own personal knowledge if that thing is still pending after 8 years?
Objection, Your Honor, to the relevance as it relates to this witness.
Overruled.
Are you aware, Joe, that that case is still pending?
The case against the Attorney General?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay. That was what was potentially troubling to you, right?
That was part of it.
Yes, sir. But not the allegations or the claim or whatever that the FBI or these different agencies had potentially engaged in misconduct. You were still willing to investigate it, right?
I left it open that could happen. I was willing to.
And you are the former United States Attorney for the Eastern District, right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, I think, and somebody said that the other applicant wasn't as qualified as you. Probably true, because there are very few people in the Eastern District that, on paper at least, would be more qualified than the former DA from Grayson County and the Eastern District United States Attorney, right?
That's your words.
Okay. In any event, you're a very qualified person. You weren't chosen, but you did make 2 or 3 calls trying to follow up to see if you could get the job. Am I recalling that correctly?
I was willing to do the job, and I didn't know what happened. Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you, Joe. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Are both parties finished with the witness?
No problem.
Excused, Your Honor.
Okay, you're excused, Mr. Brown. Thank you, sir. Next witness.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House calls Kendall Garrison.
Bailiff, please bring in Kendall Garrison.